Hola amigos, bien o no, y saludos desde Inglaterra. Hoy el tema es para recuerdo la diferencia contra una presentación, una oración y una conversación. Y por qué es muy importante para notar esta diferencia y por qué para preparar por una o para preparar para otra puede cambiar un poco el forma de práctica porque es por un otro tipo de tarea. So ese es el tema de hoy. So, hello again from England. The theme of the day is to think about something that might sound obvious, the difference between making a speech and having a conversation, but to think about how that might help us change the way that we practice, because each of them are a slightly different task, and there are good and bad things about either of them, but the way you practice for one might be useful in another one, but also there's some other things you need to practice in either case. So to illustrate this, I'm going to read you a short piece from this book, 6 Centuries of Verse. But it's a bit that's talking about one of English literature's earliest poets, Geoffrey Chaucer, who was active in the 1300s, famous for his book, The Canterbury Tales. So let me just read you this little bit, talks about that, and let's see what we think. The Canterbury Tales is a long sequence of verse stories, mostly linked together by introductions and prologues, supposed to be spoken by the characters themselves. A knight and his squire, a merchant, a lawyer, a doctor, a cook, a miller, and many people connected with the church, a parson, a prioress, a friar, a pardoner, and so on. It is in fact a cross-section of medieval society, very sharp-eyed in its observation, often slyly funny in the way Chaucer describes his characters in the general prologue to the tales, and in the way they seem to present themselves in their own introductions. Okay, so that's effectively me giving you a reading of this paragraph from the book, but it's rather like a speech, because that's just me reading this. It's not the same if I tell you what I thought about the book, and it's particularly not the same if I ask you, what did you think about the book, if I think we've read the same one. If I say, well, if you read Chaucer, what did you think about it? What was your favourite part of the Canterbury Tales? Because now we're having a conversation about it. So you see the difference. Sometimes reading aloud like that is very, very helpful for us, because that helps us make sure how our voice is performing, what's our sound like, do we have a good rhythm of speech, is there good modulation, good intonation, is it nice and expressive? So that's a more technical practice to make sure that your voice works the way you want it to work. But then when we get into the idea of we're going to have a conversation about this book, so maybe I'm going to go sit with some friends who I know have also read the Canterbury Tales, let's say, and we're going to talk about our favourite parts of the book and what we like about it. It's going to be a conversation. I am going to have to improvise a lot of what I say, because I can't predict all of the questions the other people might ask me, perhaps. But then again, I know lots about it because I've just read the book. So it's something to think about. You can practice in some ways in a technical level to know you have some of the base skills. It's like how you sound, can you pronounce the words clearly, you're happy with that. But then some other elements of when we have conversations, which is more how we improvise, how we respond to others, requires a different sense of skills, the way we have to think about how can we move the conversation once we're there. So we've looked at questions we can ask to help steer the conversation, check we've understood it, check we're on literally the same page with that person, we're talking about the same thing. Did I understand you right? what you're asking me is this. Yeah. Because once we're into that idea of the conversation, we have to trust ourselves, relax a little bit the form perhaps. So it's not like memorizing the speech and just saying that. This is using the words that we practiced by doing the reading. So we're taking that vocabulary and we're trusting ourselves because we practiced in other ways, particularly by listening to other conversations, listening to the way other people ask questions, listening to how all this kind of stuff fits together. Then when we come to join the conversation, we have information because we know about the subject. We understand the vocabulary, so we're listening for key words we can draw on and go, okay, I know we're talking about this now. We have ways to enter that conversation, and then we allow ourselves to improvise. So think of it like that. Two parts of the practice. One is more technical. Second one, a bit more of a free practice. So I'll leave you with that thought. Déjame saber en los comentarios, como siempre. But for now, we'll say cheerio.